So you probably just logged into Facebook for the first time in a month, or you just talked to your neighbor and you found out that the protest deadline was yesterday or it passed. You just missed it and you're freaking out because you're thinking, how am I ever going to afford these property taxes when my tax value keeps going up and up and up and up and up? Well, I've got some options for you on how you can file a late protest. I want to give you a little bit of insight as to who gets a property value notice and who doesn't, and what your deadline might be, because it might be different than you think. So let's dive into it. Okay, so for the first thing, I want to just address the people that did not get a value notice. Okay, not everybody gets a property value notice. The people whose value did not change more than $1,000 will never get a value notice because the law doesn't require the appraisal district to send you one. So for you, if you did not get a value notice and you log into your appraisal district website and you see that there has been a 2021 value proposed for your property, then your property tax protest deadline was probably May 15th. And then in most areas that 15th deadline was actually rolled over to the 17th because the 15th fell on a weekend. And so if your value didn't change more than $1,000, you're not going to get a value notice, and you probably just missed your protest deadline. So I've got some options for you. Don't freak out just yet. There might be hope for you. For other people that log in and see that there is no 2021 value that's been proposed, then what's happening is the appraisal district is just taking a little longer to calculate your value. They will propose a value sometime this year, and they'll generate a value notice as long as the values change more than $1,000. You'll get that in the mail, and then you're going to have 30 days from the date that you receive that note, or the date that they send that notice. You'll have 30 days to file your protest hearing or protest request. So your deadline to file the protest will be 30 days after they send that notice out to you. And so there are a lot of people that fall into that category. And if that's you, then you can just relax and take comfort in knowing that you have not missed the deadline, and there's still time to just go through the protest process the traditional way. Now, for everybody that did in fact miss your protest deadline, there are about 3 different options or 3 different categories that you might fall in. So there is something called a late protest, but not everybody qualifies. If you have been overvalued by a whole lot, then you might qualify. If it's your homestead, your primary residence, and you've got a homestead exemption filed on that property, then as long as you can prove that the property was overvalued by 25%, then you can still file to have a hearing and have a protest occur and get a reduction. But you've got to be overvalued by 25%. Now, that's for people that have the homestead exemption. If you don't have the homestead exemption, then you have to prove that you've been overvalued by a third, or 33%, which is a little higher threshold. So if you don't have enough evidence to support showing that you've been overvalued by a third, then you're not going to be able to protest this year. Okay. So those are the different options. I'm going to leave links to all of those protest avenues in the notes below, but there is one other type of protest. This is the last ditch effort. If you think that you've been overvalued significantly, and maybe there's been some kind of error, maybe a clerical error, maybe you didn't receive the notice, there are other types of protests you can file. There is, if you just Google 25.25 late protest, then you'll find the section of the property tax code that describes all the different options you have to file that late protest. And so one of them is just to appeal to the chief appraiser himself or herself and ask for a correction on the appraisal roll. Usually they reserve this for very unique circumstances. And if you've gone through the protest process and then at the ARB hearing, they determine that some kind of value, then you're probably not going to be afforded this option. But if you don't fit in any of these categories and you want to give one more shot, I'm going to leave a link below to a form that helps you protest using the 2525. I think it's 2525C is the actual subsection of that. One way or the other, links below. But I wanted to just give you these options and let you know what's going on with your protest, what options you have. And if you don't fit in any of those categories, I'm just hoping that this is your homestead residence, and hopefully you've got that exemption on there that will cap your taxable value at a growth of a maximum of 10% per year. Because as long as you have that in place, then it's not going to get just totally outrageous. I mean, it's 10% is outrageous enough. But hopefully you've got that in place. And then you just start thinking about next year, because next year's protest is coming. The valuation date is January 1st of every year. And they always look at the entire last 12 months worth of time to gather evidence. And so you're in that period now where you can start gathering evidence for next year's protest. And so I know it feels like a long way off right now. You're probably pretty bummed that you just missed the protest deadline. Hopefully one of these options help. If not, feel free to reach out to my office. My email is protest@chandlercrouch.com. Again, that's protest@chandlercrouch.com. If there's any way that I can help you, then I will absolutely do that. Again, that's protest@chandlercrouch.com. Have a great day. Thanks a lot.